Hi everybody and welcome to this week's Fight Chat Friday, where we're going to be sitting and chatting with Adam Shelley, 5 times world champion, 3 times in team and twice in individual in sparring, and going through some of his best bits or some of his best techniques and good examples from the techniques that he's used to achieve that really high level of success in ITF sparring. So hopefully you'll enjoy this one as much as we do. All right, Richie, so maybe we just bring Adam in right away and we'll jump right into this one.
Yeah, so welcome, we have Adam on board here, guys, to share his thoughts today. So a bit of a different setup that we usually have. So it's great to have Adam on board. Adam, thanks for joining in.
No bother, lads. Thanks for having me on. Hope you're keeping well.
Great. So will you give us just a quick introduction and maybe just who you were, what you've achieved and things like that to give people a bit of background if they haven't come across you before?
Yeah, so I competed with the Irish national team from 2009 to 2017. And in that time, as Adrian Byrne was saying there, I won 2 world titles, 5 Europeans in individual, and 3 world titles in teams and a couple of European finals. That was over the space of the 8 years. And yeah, so we're looking forward to getting into the video today.
Yeah, definitely one of the more successful ITF competitors that we've had over the last decade. Sure. So it's going to be really interesting to see Adam's take on some of the really kind of interesting points and his mindset behind certain finals and things like that. So we'll get into the clips and it should be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I suppose just as we're live today, it's worth saying that anybody who's watching along, if you do have a question for Adam, send them into the chat there and we can bring them forward and put them to Adam, at the appropriate time in the chat. And hopefully the discussions that we're having bring ideas to people's minds or bring questions to people's minds, and then we can bounce them off Adam while he's here with us, and hopefully leave people fairly satisfied with what's going on. So we want to start maybe with a little bit of home action and one of Adam's kind of staples in terms of one of the strategies that he tend to bring to the ring. So we're going to have a look at a little clip here of Adam sparring in an Irish competition against one of his main opponents and teammates, Luke Woods. So here we go. So INTA Open International, couldn't place the year here actually, but it might come back to you, Adam.
Yeah, 2015 as far as I know, Adrian.
Oh, that's good. That's sharp.
Yeah, one of the best bits that I really like about this clip is that the fact you come out of the gates absolutely blazing. And that was kind of one of the highlights of your game, really, Adam, to come out strong with that front leg and really boss it from the start. Would it be fair to say that would have been kind of something that you have in your mind at the start, or in this particular fight, was it more of a matchup thing where you really wanted to take the fight to Luke and really get aggressive from the opening?
Yeah, so with this one, Luke, as we all know, can be a feckin' Duracell bunny in there. So, he can really come out fast. So I just decided, this was actually, I'd never fought Luke, hadn't sparred him in ages because he had been away and stuff. So I just said, you know what, I'll get out in front here, put the pace on from the start and sort of let him know I'm there. And after that, just a little exchange there, when he fell to the ground, I was quite confident that, right, I'm happy with this approach now. Sort of had him on the back foot, struggling for him to getting things off, and especially because he likes a lot of circular shots, was just go through with that side kick.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, it's definitely, as you look into that, some of the characteristics that I would put, and for those watching, I've coached Adam and I've coached against Adam because of the way that things will work, both at national events. I actually step in with Adam in this particular match, but it's not in the video. But I've coached Adam in major championships within team in particular, and then I coached against you in the finals in 2015 in Rimini.
That's right.
So it's an interesting one, but the length of the stance and the amount of space that you can absorb in your stance because of your height in the 70 kilo division, it was certainly a feature of your play, I think, the whole way through. And you can see, for me anyway, when I'm watching what you're doing against Luke, normally he'd be very, very quick to step in and cut people on if they made any step, and you're absolutely able to get away with it because of the amount of space you have in your stance. Is that something that you're thinking about against different opponents, you know, the whether or not you can take that step.
Yeah, definitely. And like if you watch here, a lot of the time as I'm kicking, like I do that little adjustment with the back leg in order to make the stance a little bit shorter, to make it easier to pick up and shift. As opposed to maybe if I was looking to draw people in and go with hands, I'd be looking with that slightly longer stance to draw people in. A lot of people, some people can develop this a little bit easier. I find with that long stance, it is very difficult to do the straight lift and shift. I think you guys cover a little bit of that in the psychic video not too long ago. But in order to get that advancement, there needs to be that little adjustment in order to go. But yeah, definitely and then I have a nice sort of solid base under me then.
And that's actually something that I think is a feature of your type of sidekick in particular, is what I call like a jousting style, where it's really like it fires forward like that kind of like straight out of a cannon, just like direct. And I think it's impossible to get if you're really carrying that over a long distance. So I think that the way you were able to get that off, it really puts a lot of power behind the shot as well. So if you connect with that, it's going to send somebody right on the back foot and put a bit of a mark on them.
Absolutely. And another thing, if you ever notice, you know, a lot of guys, I find if they play the sort of flicky lead leg sidekick, they will have, you know, a really short stance in order to get that up straight away and keep their tall posture. But with this slightly longer stance, like I find sometimes when I'm shifting, and Richie, what you're saying about that jousty style, it's nearly like the kick is getting away from you. So you're really advancing in, and that's what gets the power. Like from that position, it's not going to last forever because my weight isn't all the way back. If the weight is all the way back, then I can flick all day.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to advance enough. So it's finding that sweet spot, being able to get the height and distance on the kick, and then also getting the speed on the shift. Little sweet spot there.
Yeah. And I think actually that's one of the things as well, is because a lot of the time, from what I've noticed, you really put that out there on the hip and shoot that middle a lot with the aggressive one. And then if you need to adjust the levels, then that adjustment has to come in, of course, doesn't it?
That's right. So let's say if maybe I have somebody in the corner and I want to go head hunting, then it will be upright, start to flick a little bit. Won't be major power, won't be major speed in the advancement. But if it's trying to take space, or if I know somebody's on the back foot, the head will stay here, and it's really looking to go in with the side kick.
Yeah, you're able to pull your front leg back a little bit. Rather than stepping the back leg in to shorten your stance, you can pull your front leg back a little bit to shorten the stance if they're towards the edge, and it gives you that option. And it actually segues well into the next little clip which we have, which is just using that same very, space-taking and dominant hip-high side kick to link to hands. So we'll have a quick look at that one.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite clips here, Adam, because what I love about here is you link the hands and legs super well. Being able to be in that further out distance, we see it here. It's full on side facing here. So you're maximizing your length, which is a major staple of your game here. And then shooting that forward as a real jousting style here, as we see. But as we see, as you drop this leg here, you drop it to the outside to straighten up the body, to go full facing, to punch more correctly and at a full facing position to get the shots off.
Yeah. Again, like that, you know, very difficult to be very dominant with that side kick and use hands from the same stance. So that is something I did work on a lot in training, is being able to just quickly make that adjustment between hands and feet, and recognizing when that exchange is going to be on with the hands. As you can see, Ludwig's on his way in here, turn and go straight away with them hands and come into a little bit more of a squared up or half facing position as opposed to the side facing.
Yeah, and like, did you find that was a challenge to get used to? Because I would say, going back to your junior career, you wouldn't have been that renowned for getting onto the hands or doing much of your work with the hands. It was definitely much more with the front leg, and obviously you introduced a bit of boxing into your training as well. You know, did you find it difficult to adjust your thinking to opening up the hands?
Yeah, definitely. And so, like, as a junior, like, it would have been okay. From that position, I probably would have nearly attempted a jumping defensive side kick. Like, you know, even though it was way too close, so it would never work in that situation. But that would have been my go-to, just leg all the time. And then from doing a little bit of boxing and having groin problems for a while where I couldn't really kick, I turned to more of that square / half facing stance, using my hands a lot more in training. And then when I was able to kick again, starting to blend the two. And it took time, obviously takes errors, learning a few little adjustments, but it came over time then. But I find it's obviously then a very valuable thing. If you can get that quick switch between the two, it's going to be very difficult for your opponent, especially if you're dominating with the leg. A lot of people, upright, straight legs, you don't really expect hands from there. To be able to turn and go straight away for hands, very effective.
Yeah, I think that we're going to actually look at a little bit of your inside game as well, and using the kind of like the slipping and the head movement, which not a lot of people do, but you do it at a very good rate to be able to get some return. But I think based on that as well, I think it'd be very interesting to tell people that a lot of people wouldn't know the story of maybe the European Cup from 2014, that you actually won that whole championships with predominantly just using your hands because of that injury.
That's right, yeah. So it was around that time I was just suffering terrible. Like anytime I'd overreach on a side kick, just pain was very bad on both sides. And I didn't kick for a long time coming up to that competition. And then in my first fight, I fought Nikita Orlov from Ukraine. Very wiry, had to use the front leg. And after first, second round, like, again, grinds were at me big time. So then at least do you know what? It was okay to kick when I wasn't overreaching. So if I was on the spot, keeping my body upright, I could do axe kicks and stuff. But anything that involved that sort of stretching position, like nearly into a side split, couldn't happen, like, you know. So thankfully I had sort of put the groundwork in with getting my hands better before that competition, which helped me get over the line.
It brings up an interesting challenge for other people when they're sparring someone like yourself then, though, because like if Adam Shelley at that stage was a leg machine only and the hands weren't that much of a threat, it means that there's a distance that's good for people. Being just outside of your leg range, as Luke was hovering with, say, in maybe the first clip, but working on staying just outside your leg range. But then there's a safe zone as well, where it's just inside the leg range. So if their movement is good and they can push, pull, they can, work around your range and figure it out. The problem when you think you figured out with, say, your range and you step just inside that leg range is you realize the arms are almost as long. And, you've walked yourself into another little problem then. And, I think that's like a more generally applicable principle for people who are training and to get to the top level is to have those multiple ranges. So, having the ability to use the legs at different ranges and then seamlessly kind of linked to the hands to where they're really, it's hard for your opponent to find a safe range. And then that makes them have to look for angles or direct counters more, which again, a little bit higher risk than just adjusting your ranges.
Definitely. And like, even just coming back to, obviously we know having an all-round game is going to be, you're on to a winner straight away. And different people like, Colin Adolphs and most people familiar, one guy I know a lot in points, Salt Muradi, like big kickers, like, upright, leggy guys. A lot of them, and myself included then, started to get scores with their hands because it's quite simple. You're coming out, an opponent is coming out, right, tall guy, kicker. You're focused on the kick, and then next thing the hands come in. Like, you've done all your preparation, all your tactics are based around that leg, and then next thing they come out and start using hands. It just throws everything out of order for you, like, So
I'm jumping on that segue. I'm just jumping on this segue. It was like
there we go, yeah.
Is a lovely clip, and here we're talking a bit of inside work there again, and the head movement and trying to just be comfortable in that closer range. And I think, Adam, that a lot of people who, even to be fair to Colin here as well, guys who are leggy as juniors, they really almost they thrive with the leg so much that they almost just live on and survive on that. But to be fair to both of you actually put a lot of work into the hands, which made you complete fighters. Whereas a lot of people, they would just kind of almost just use their hands as their main weapon, and they wouldn't really round their game off. So I think that is something that made both of you guys very, very successful.
Definitely. Geez, I love that exchange back there, actually. But what was, Richie, with the junior thing, then when you go to senior, that was a big turning point for me as well.
Absolutely.
The likes of, I started coming up against Hong, and I fought some other guy that I fought in World Cup in Brighton. Can't remember his name. Might have been Peter Peter something. The seniors just hit harder, you know, they hit harder and they want to go to hands. So you're sort of, I found anyway, I was left with no choice but to improve my hands. Otherwise, once they got past that leg, I was done for, you know.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, this clip as well. I added this one in to show, for such a big guy, you're able to really move well and avoid as well, which is something that's nice in your game. And most of the time, guys who are quite tall, the mobility isn't there, but you're able to avoid shots and move quite well in the ring as well, which is a nice factor of the game that you have.
Yeah, I suppose that comes back to, and this would be something I noticed you mentioned a lot on the Instagram, trying to find as many different sparring partners as possible. So, like, you know, yeah, if I'm sparring small guys the whole time, I'm going to be good at tracking them down. But I was lucky that when I was training, I had bigger guys there too, like, you know, in the 80, 90 kilos to put pressure on me. So then, therefore, me going out and dominating with my leg wasn't really going to work. So I'd have to, you know, pick and move a little bit more. So putting yourself in them uncomfortable positions and working on the weak aspects of your game.
Yeah. Adrian, can we have a look at a clip that we just had a look again? I think it's worth having a look through, because it's fair to say you love a bit of contact as well, and you love getting stuck in.
Yeah.
It's a lovely clip. Just kind of, and this, it's that pulling again, isn't it? People just trying to get into your range, and it allows you to kind of be that step ahead, to step into it, where people are kind of chasing you a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, you know, myself and Colin, like, you know, we get on well, but there's a nice competitive nature there. So obviously in my head, it's like, I can use hands, and he's like, well, I can use hands too. So like, both of us wanted to throw a little bit, you know, which made for a good, exciting fight on that night anyway.
Yeah, but I do think what it comes down to as well, when it comes into that, is the accuracy is a big deciding factor. And, you know, you can see, you know, you've got big guys at long range here, and like the change of direction, you know, is really, really nice. And even Colin's adapted well there to improvise the band-aid. But when it comes to hands, you know, like, I'm looking at that exchange, and like, I think you've come out the clear winner on that exchange in terms of like the accuracy of the shots that are landing, and where you've linked in the turning kick as well. So like, for me, looking at that, it's the whole, there's no panic. Nothing is reflexive is reactive. It might be reflexive a little bit, but it's not reactive. So it's reading where the opening is, being the one who takes the initiative to go to hands, making sure you get that first good contact, and then the split of the rhythm to go hands, back to the leg, back to the hands. It makes it very difficult to pick a good range on you, and to put the, you know, to put the face on the end of the glove in some ways. And I think for me, that, like, that taking the initiative, that acting rather than reacting, is a big feature of your game as well.
Definitely. And you know, even in terms of, like, we look at the point scoring system, you know, obviously, like, you know, points, yeah, you only get 1 point. Sorry, punches, you only get 1 point. But I think, you know, on the back, if you're on the back foot or attacking, a nice clean punch, obviously, like, not too hard, it can't be too excessive, as opposed to maybe a turning kick to the body after hands. Right, maybe you might get 2 judges will score you 2 points for a turning kick to the body. So yeah, if you accumulate a total of 4. But if you get a nice double punch or a stepping back 1-2, and it's nice and clean on the forehead, I think you're getting 3, if not 4 judges there. You know, it can be very clean if the arm is fully extended. Obviously not too much, a little bit of a head movement, maybe just nice and snappy with a retraction, and you're not putting your life and soul into the punch. So then therefore you're not vulnerable to a counter attack or to be exposed afterwards. Just nice little snappy with the arms. I think, like, I find anyway now when I'm umpiring at tournaments, and if you see kids and stuff with clean long range punches, they're very easy to score.
Yeah,
very easy to score. Very clean and easy.
That is something that we really highlighted as well, Adrian, with Zach. We did a video of Zach Espy, and the way he punches for not the tallest guy in the world. He's only about 5'11", 6 foot maybe, which is quite tall, but maybe for the heavyweight division, not the tallest. But still, he gets so upright when he punches that it's so clear for the umpires and the referees when he punches. He just has that way about him where he's never really punching above himself. He's always like the taller person in the contest, which just is something visual about that for sure, to allow the umpires to say, oh yeah, that was a clear score there, you know.
Definitely. And like, you know, obviously look, headshot, like an axe kick or a turning kick, that's your clearest probably that we can get. But if we compare punches to the head to kicks to the body, Like, you know yourself from scoring, like tourniquet, did it hit the elbow? Did it sneak in? It can be hard to tell depending on your position as a judge. But as I said, nice clean punch, even if it's slightly hooky, you'll often hear the connection of the glove and the helmet, and very nice to score, I find.
Yeah, it just happens to be as well that those shots, like we talked about this, as in like what shots are more visual than others. And like when you're in the center of the ring and you're punching, as opposed to maybe being in a corner and you're finishing a combination off hands with a kick, there's only an opportunity for maybe 2 or 3 judges who may possibly see that, especially if it's to the body.
Yeah.
When it's to the head, it's a different story. It's more visible to potentially 4 judges in both corners. But the punches, again, because of that height that's involved, it's just a little bit clearer to see. And that's kind of what you're trying to do as well for the judges, just make their job easy to get those points on the board.
I think as well there's the physiological thing in that your eyes don't work as accurately as we think they do. Like the reality about how it works is our eyes fill in the gaps. So if we see a sequence, our experience, our expectations help us to fill the gaps. And sometimes we illustrated this, I think, with the reverse turning kick that hits the glove on the way back down, and you can watch it and think it's hit the glove on the way in there. Because you know, that's what your expectation is. You saw the hand there, the kick came over, hit the head and back down onto the glove. You expected the foot to hit the hand. You fill in the gap and you go, oh, right, okay, that wasn't a score. Or the reverse of it, you expect the foot to hit the head and then it bounces back. And it's not until you slow it down and you really watch it, do you see which order it was in. And it's just because these things happen quickly. There's emotion involved, there's shouting, there's screaming, there's everything else. Sometimes, like even with the very best of intentions as a referee, you don't see everything perfectly. And that's where, like you said, sometimes if the shot makes sense and fills the gap, perfect. You know, it's good to go. We have a question in there. It's actually, it's going to pop up as Saoirse, but it's actually Damien that's sending in the question. But we'll float this up here so everyone can see it. So it's just checking in and asking Adam about the training. Was it 2 days a week or 2 times a day for 7 days a week or something in the middle, I suppose? And had you other sports on like soccer as well? So just to break up the general discussion, we'll have a go at that one.
Yeah, definitely no soccer in there anyway when I was preparing for a Worlds. I think soccer is your most likely sport to get injured with ankles and knees and all sorts. And yeah, it would have been more twice a day, probably 6 days a week with a rest day in there as well. So you're talking 11, 12 sessions a week.
Yeah. I think the people who go with the 7 days a week are not giving themselves any chance for recovery. It's and the training shouldn't all be at the highest of intensity. But you know, there's a consistent effort over time that's required, you know, if you're going to achieve, you know, at the highest levels for sure.
It's all about that quality over the quantity as well, isn't it? You want to get that good work in, much more valuable than just going through the motions and just getting sessions done for the numbers. You want to get that quality in there.
That's right. We've all done. I remember 1 or 2 campaigns where I was doing like 3 or 4 sprint sessions a week. Nervous system was fried, like, you know, and wondering why I wasn't getting anything back off my sparring sessions. I was absolutely exhausted going into sparring. So obviously trial and error, speaking to people, educating myself, soon learned, as Adrian said, although that maybe 10, 11, 12 sessions a week, they were hugely variant in intensities and stuff. Some days it was go time. Some days it was quite chilled. Heart rate probably not getting above 150, 160. Yeah.
Speaking of go time, I think that's a nice way to get a transition into that clip with Camille from 2019. Do we have that, Adrian? Or 2017, sorry.
So let me see, which one have we got? So here we go.
So this clip is, just for a bit of context, is 50 seconds into the final of the Worlds in your home country. And to me, it just looks like you just said, right, let's go here. And you just absolutely turned it on. What was your thinking there coming into the Worlds with a big crowd from home and the final of the Worlds on center stage?
So again, last fight of the day, you know, had fun for 5 fights and it's the last one. And to be fair to Master Cooley, he was coaching me for that one. And he said, right, from the start, let's just go through him. And it sort of reminded me of the start what we talked about earlier on with Luke Woods. Sometimes, like, I don't know, I never like really looking across at people and trying to get body language feelings or anything, but I did just see something in Camille, I don't know, and I just said, right, you know what, I'm just going to take this to a level that he's not going to be ready for. And I think he was a little bit shocked, because maybe, you know, as you said, final home country, you're looking at the tentative approach, pick a score here and there. And I said, right, I'll just take it the opposite direction, go through. And it definitely worked. I think he was a little bit stuck.
Definitely get yourself off on the right foot. And do you know what? Once you get a lead on people as well, it's very, very difficult based on the things we've already spoken about today to get that lead back. So you're laughing once you get ahead on the scoreboard, really.
Definitely. And as well, like, you know, I've found this as well in training and even in competitive matches as well. Like, you know, sometimes you're going out there expecting a chess match and whatever, and somebody comes out and changes that rhythm, and you're nearly like, gee, I'm in a fight here from the start, you know, like, it's like, am I going to have to keep this up for the entire match? When truth is, like, I didn't plan on doing that for the whole 4 minutes. I was doing that in a burst to, as you said, Richie, get myself a lead and then sit back. So, but the other person is thinking, here, we're going to war here for 4 minutes. So it's nearly a double negative on their part as well, in their heads, you know, thinking that they're having to prepare for war.
Yeah, what I love in this sequence as well is just there's, you know, it's one thing to say, right, we'll raise the intensity and go at someone for a particular period of time, and you know that all sounds great in theory, but when you try to do that, most people start to repeat themselves. So in other words, they present the same threat in the same way over and over again, and you know, 2 or 3 would say interactions into the sequence, they've been figured out, and the person just naturally twigs it, they chunk it, they figure it out, and then they dissolve the situation. They either get an effective counter in, they get out of the corner and they take space for themselves, or they take the initiative and they start to get above your leg, or they start to make a good contact and come back. But if we will maybe just have a quick look at it again, the amount of different distances, you know, heights, changes of direction that you've built into what, you know, they're very short sequences, 10 or 12 seconds. But my coaching advice out there would be to anyone, try to not repeat yourself for 12 seconds in the ring. Try and attack each time at a different length, you know, from a different stance, at a different angle, you know, present those different threats and see, can you do that? You know, and again, you layer on top of it. And I'd like the bit that jumped out to me as well, you know, as we'll go back and maybe have a look at it and Adam can have a chat through that. But, you know, Adam's going into the ring there, and under normal circumstances, and for most people in most countries at any point in time in history, if you're the guy who's stepping into the World Championship final, yes, the hopes and dreams of the country are behind you and everyone wants you to do well, and you yourself are feeling pressure for yourself, but like, you know, it's a big deal. Adam is in the weird position there of he's walking up onto that stage, and he's had quite a few people, you know, like, so Jamie was up on the stage before you, and Ryan was up on the stage before you, I believe, as well, wasn't he?
Adrian, I was actually first out of the lads. Jamie was coming in after me. Yeah, you and Jamie came in after me. Yeah. But again, it was like backwards, kicking off the lads type of thing. We chatted about before, all 4 of us going in. It's like, right, better get this off to a winning start.
Well, there you go. There's the motivation kind of placing it. But yeah, for me, that's you know, as I'm watching it. Sorry, that was Cherkis off. We'll come back to that one in a while. So yeah, for me, it is a huge thing of the different distances. So it all looks like it's going to be, you know, pick up a side kick, but it's the different distances that the pressure comes on from. So, you know, the different length of the stances, the preparatory steps, that little change from a side kick into a turning kick as you go here. And I think the second part of this clip even illustrates it. The second and third part illustrate it better, where, yeah, that pressure comes on, and it comes on in different steps in different ways. So maybe as we're looking through the next ones, Adam, you might have a thought on it.
Yeah, definitely. And even like, you know, that alertness there that I was sort of bringing, if anybody has watched Camille before, Camille tends to be quite aggressive at times too. Lately, like in his sort of, as he's getting older, he seems to be just settling down. And like, if you look here, he's quite rigid and waiting. But in the
sorry to interrupt you here, Adam, just as this clip, just to go on your point, look how you're able to come back into the center of the ring right here, and you're able to take that over. Just to emphasize kind of on your point there. Go on, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so like Camille likes to rush sometimes, so I was nearly like putting the pressure on him with the side kick, but at all times waiting and being ready for him to explode at any time. So what I did there, Richie, I pull back in, but also maintaining that distance between me and him, expecting that sort of, he does that sort of, I call it the train blitz, where he goes through you. He doesn't pull up short. He goes through, like, So at all times, sort of, you see there, I'm waiting. He didn't happen. Well, he went for it there eventually, but always waiting for that counter attack too.
Really, really nice. And I think that, like, as you said, it's kind of like that sprint and blitz, and you have to, the distance there has to be spot on. But I think it's just really interesting to highlight that point, that you were able to just come right back into the center and dominate there from the middle. And that's kind of like a small, subtle detail that not a lot of people would notice. But the fact that you're so focused on controlling the center of that ring, it's really like a foundation and a basic to your game of bringing that intensity and that pressure and that kind of like absolute control in the ring.
That's right. And like, you know, I don't know if you guys have done videos on this, but you've definitely mentioned it on the page, Richie. Like now in today's Taekwondo and stuff, warnings are just so influential in terms of what happens and stuff. So you've got to be, and especially in a final when things can be close, like a warning can change the whole match. Yeah. So at all times they're just looking after that ring position. If you're a little bit sloppy, Camille does that little turn and then he takes that space, I give up a warning. That comes back to haunt you later on the fight. So just always just sort of being there, razor sharp in your mind for the whole time.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you look at a clip like that and you assume, you know, you can make assumptions, or even with Luke earlier, like for any of those lads, if you're a bit sloppy in your pickup, or if you lose your stance, if you start to sell your technique too early with your hand movements, you know, they will pick an angle and they will hit you, and they're very capable with a counterattack. So you have to be very unpredictable and very varied in the threats that you present to not let them settle and find a way through. So
I think we're absolute masters at this segue, lads. I have to say, every single one, because if we're going to the Kirkashov, is that how you pronounce his name, Adam?
Yeah. Yeah. Going there next, do you know what? I normally butcher the names. I call him Cherkesov.
Yeah, but that's the perfect segue there that you're saying, Adrian, because look what happens here. He's trying to get past that range, find a way in, and then that just allows you play at the long range, and then watch what happens here. You just step right in. So people are always like that step behind you, just what Adrian was saying there a second ago. Like they're trying to get their way through that distance. It's tricky to kind of sneak their way in, get past that range, and then as they're trying to figure that out, you just mess it up by mixing up their rhythm and just easily counter with that front hand yourself. So you're patient, and you just step right through and just kick. It's a nice score, super clear on the front hand again.
Again, geez, lads, this is a trip down memory lane. I haven't watched a lot of these fights in years, so I'm really enjoying this.
Nice. Adam, Shelley, this is your life.
Yeah.
But, so if we talked there earlier on, we mentioned Camille sort of taking that train blitz approach. In this scenario, I would have found that, I think, a lot more difficult to deal with, as opposed to Dimitri sort of just trying to creep in, Richie, as you were saying, and a little bit sloppy there with his kick on the way in, made it quite easy for me to counter. So to give out tips sort of on the aggressor's point of view here, sometimes the option is just, it's go. Like, you know, it's really for the attacker there, for Dimitri to go at me, rather than trying to creep your way in all the time. It can make it, I find that's quite easy as the defender to deal with that at times.
Yeah, but it's kind of like what you were saying, Adrian, then, isn't it? It's like Adam there had the opportunity to kind of read the same rhythm that Dimitri was coming with. It was kind of predictable, as opposed to where Adam started off at the start of the 2017 final, where he was kind of like very unpredictable and throwing different speeds, different intensity, different shots. So then it kind of allows your timing and your distance to just be there. And it's almost like that's a natural feeling, Adam, when you're there and it's like that front hand is there. It's just a natural feeling. It's not even something you need to think about.
But equally,
like the rhythm there is, I think, the biggest take-home point for people. If you watch Dimitri's, not once did he, not coming down on him here, he didn't change the tempo or rhythm at any stage. So like there wasn't much threat. Whereas if there was a little bit of a change of rhythm or a couple of fakes, it would have made things a lot more difficult for me, I think, to time that front hand.
But going back to even our earlier clip when we were talking about, you know, that shortening of the stance, this is it in the other direction. So this is you pulling the front foot to shorten the stance to let you threaten body and head. And what Dimitri's looking at there is like, well, am I walking my face straight into a high kick here? And because that, you can see he's floating his front hand, he's looking to cover the head, maybe to go to hands, and you're hitting the hip. He's dropping to cover the hip and you're threatening that you're flashing, you know, the face. And that's always, for like, one of the most common questions we get on Instagram is, how do I fight a taller fighter? And that's part of the challenge. If they, you know, and even if they're not taller, if they have the ability to threaten body and head fluidly with the legs, it becomes quite a challenge. So you being in the corner there and shortening up your stance a little bit, you're not waiting, you're still active, but it makes it really hard for Dimitri there to pick what way to pressure you, because he has to find a way through that leg, and that's basically the challenge that's there. I mean, and as you said, he hasn't gone the rhythm route. He hasn't been able to present a challenging rhythm. Because you're right in the corner, angle isn't really much of much use to him. So it really does come to, can he get his leg in there above yours first and create pressure that way? Can you go directly to hands and beat your front leg? Or can he make you miss time so that you're too short or too long and then go through? So he's kind of stuck. It's the rhythm he needs to, is the one he didn't try. So, that's something. We have a question or a hello in from Honduras. So I'll probably butcher that name. No Calix. So who's your inspiration and what's your goal in this hard year, 2021? And greetings from Honduras.
Had many inspirations over the years, especially when I was junior coming through. The likes of Thomas Barad on the international scene would have been always sort of chase what he achieved. On the national scene, Hong Louis, Stephen Ryan, Luke Woods, when I was a junior, they were all very hot around that time. In particular, 2009, Benidorm, Argentina, they were really the guys I was looking to coming through. And I was lucky that I ended up getting to compete against Hong and Luke, and never got to Stephen Ryan. But they would have been.
We can make that happen if you want.
Yeah, right. Yeah. After COVID, we'll get a little fight night going. Yeah. But yeah, definitely they would have been other guys as well, but they would have been sort of my main three. I'd say Thomas Barada, Hong, Luke Woods, Steve Ryan. And in terms of goals for 2021 is just get back to regular training, regular competing, and let's everybody push past this COVID business.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I think we all want that one. So Richie, where do you want to go next? We have we could go towards Magomed or Patrick Karlstrom, or go up towards Phil Whitlock. What do you reckon?
Yeah, let's talk about that head movement. Big fan of that.
So I think we probably need to look at Magomed a bit for that one then.
Yeah.
Let's jump in here. So first of them.
So yeah, for the people that don't know, Adam won the Worlds in 2015 and 2017, and then Magomed won it 2019. So the two world champions of the -70s for the last couple of campaigns. So absolute barn burner here. But look at it, the head movement from Adam there. I really like the fact that you're comfortable in the pocket. I think this was the first time, Adam, you fought Magomed. It was the first time that he was on the scene, and his intention was just to come out and put you under serious pressure, and it didn't phase you one bit. You were comfortable there and in the fire.
Yeah, Magomed surprised me all right in this one because so like that, I think I'm trying to remember, did he have a fight before me? I can't remember, but so I think I saw it on the draw sheet or whatever, Magomed Nordenov from Norway, and I was like, geez, never heard of him before. And I saw him warming up in the warm-up area, and I was like I was like, geez, he's pretty handy. I was like, that could be the guy I'm against. Like, he's about my weight. He looks solid enough. I think he was giving me the eyes as well, actually. So
standard Magomed. Shout out to Magomed.
So I was like, well, yeah, he's pretty handy. And then as you can see here, he's no stop straight at me. So like that, tried utilizing some of that head movement. I was really messing around with some boxing techniques and handwork for that 2016 championship. So that's where the handwork definitely came in and helped me out in that fight, I think.
Yeah, and this one is the 2017 final then. Yeah, the year later, isn't it?
Yeah, the
met him in the final. Yeah, and just for a bit of context as well, this is actually Magomed's highlight video. So it says a lot for Adam to be able to shine through, and Magomed's highlight video, to be fair to him, and Magomed is giving it back just as much as you are, to be fair. But I think that just the head movement there alone as well is fantastic. Just being comfortable in that close range is something that we don't really see in ITF. Usually it'll get tied up there, whereas you had a great ability, and it probably comes from your wacko training and your fights there, to be able to be comfortable in that tight close range and being able to move the head and slip and roll and stuff like that, which is not really something that we see in ITF. What are your thoughts on the head movement and being in that kind of in the fire a little bit more?
Yes, so it's interesting. So myself and Ryan, like my brother, obviously, we discuss these things a lot, and we agree on most things, but we do disagree on some things as well, and this is one of them.
That's good.
So like,
brothers.
So again, I would have sort of taken this in from a bit of boxing, practicing head movement and stuff like that. And I would have had success with it against some of the lads in the gym, Ryan in particular. So he decided to take it upon himself that if I drop my head anywhere near his waist, he's coming up with a turning kick from hell to take my head off. And he came very close to it a couple of times. So I stopped doing it against him. So I do think, all right, maybe, I don't know, maybe there was guys before me, but I could have been sort of one of the first competitors to maybe try this type of stuff. What I would say is there is a risk, because in ITF and Wacko too, people are coming up with that back leg or the front leg, whatever. The people are wanting to throw turning kick after hands. So if you're playing around down in that waist level, like, you could be asking for trouble, really.
Yeah.
So like that, I got away with it, thankfully. Do you know what? We haven't got a clip of it in this, I wouldn't say, but when I fought Dmitry Cherkesov in Finland, so a month after Russia, he nearly caught me a couple of times with so I was in the corner trying to do head movement, and he shot up off the back leg with a front kick or a turning kick, and he came close to catching me there. So
it is a dangerous game, isn't it?
Very dangerous, especially if you're in corners and dropping anywhere near the waist. All right, maybe if we're face to face and maybe slipping left, slipping right, but if we're going all the way down.
Yeah, we all know what happened there with me in the Worlds as well. I got caught big with that shot. Same thing. It's just that leaning over to the side as you're trying to use the head movement, and especially you. To be fair, you're lucky that you're the taller guy. But when if a guy is taller than you and you're leaning down into him, then it's a bad idea. So it's great to be able to see you be able to do it at that high level. But I think it's important for people that are watching to be aware of that and careful. To be conscious of the dangers that go with it. Yeah.
And we can't let Adam away there without, giving a bit of a nod to Daniel Jawa, who definitely did it first. But I'm not I couldn't say it's something that various different people will have had to their varying degrees in their style. But definitely for me, it would be notable, particularly the last few years, of you competing at the very highest level. Certainly from 2015 through 2017, it would have been a feature of a lot of your matches to where, it ends up coming to hands. And even just that one slip, or roll would leave you in a position where you'd land the first hand, there'd be one slip or roll, and then you're getting the second or third one in. And again, we go back to what we said about the referees. It leaves it super clear. The head wasn't there. Now your opponent is trying to find, their bearings again and come back at you. And I mean, okay, it'll never be boxing style in Taekwondo. We're not going to have the stance for it. We're not going to be in that kind of position. And the other person can move and exit and do different things. So it's not quite the same. It tends to be more about a singular moment or two moments where you end up in a trade and there's a body movement, a head movement, and you now have a new angle, you now have a new position your opponent has missed. And I think it's definitely worth highlighting where it's emerged here. But also I think really good there to highlight the risks.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, the risks obviously for us as opposed to boxing is the kicks and stuff. But then I think where it also it has its pros and cons. The majority of punches in Taekwondo are straight punches. Yeah. So you're not having to worry about going into a hook or an uppercut. Generally, it's mainly going to be straight. So once you get your head off slightly offline, then you probably have completed the slip. What I was referring to is if you're dropping that head down, Mayweather style and trying to play the rope-a-dope or whatever, and then you want to watch yourself. Yeah, definitely.
You got to keep, it's important as well that based on what you're saying there, it's you kind of need to keep the feet in motion as well. If you just stay on the spot and just plant yourself there, you're really putting it out of your advantage, we say, because you need to be able to kind of move with the motion of it, especially as you said, the kicks are in play. But I think it's really interesting there at you said, Adrian, referees, because for me that was one of the highlights of your head movement, Adam, because a lot of time when it goes to hands, referees are very quick to stop it. But because of that slipping and the continuation it allowed, it actually stopped a lot of sequences that you get with the hands that usually would be stopped with other people, where there would be a hecho called separate and reset. And it just allowed you to get that continuation because there was no scrappiness to it. And then linking that up with the kind of the clarity of the shots. I think it was a feature you wouldn't really see that often,
Yeah, it does. It helps tidy it up and keep it a little bit cleaner as opposed to both guys sort of just standing there on the line and machine gun punching, as you're saying, the ref is breaking that fairly soon. But when there's that little bit of movement, keeping things tidy, keeping a little bit of distance, it definitely makes for more flow. It would be nice to see it come into ITF a little bit more and see people do it. It might make the hand exchanges a little bit more tidy, but I just keep going back to that. Watch out for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, I think the key in ITF is like for achieving that continuation is either, like you said, a bit more head movement, a bit more body movement once the contact emerges, or it's more traditionally it's the connecting the forward to back, it's connecting with hands and exit with the legs or something along those lines. But you know, and like in, out, back in again. But it's definitely something where, you know, if you're doing well, you want to get the reflection on the scoreboard. And if you've gotten into a trade with hands and the referee is breaking it up, it's also taking away your ability to leverage the momentum that you've got by building a score. So you're looking in ITF to score, almost disengage or break rhythm and score again to allow it to continue. So now that you've got that in, that, you know, you've stepped through the leg, you've caught in, you want to make sure you're walking out of there with 4 or 5 points if you can, and the biggest possible impact on the scoreboard, because getting 1 point on 2 or 3 cards is okay, but it's not what you want as a return for the effort that you've done, you know, in building up the rhythm and in setting the trap and getting in there. So yeah, I think that's a place where, you know, as we highlighted, you've been very effective, is making sure you actually maximize your score when you get in. Yeah,
and even I've noticed people doing the one now a little bit more off the blitz, and the front hand is coming in straight. That one is a beaut where you just get that little slip off the line and then the backhand comes in.
Yeah.
That, as we're talking about there, Adrian, like it buys you a lot of time then if if you end up sort of in their armpit a little bit, maybe and you've landed a shot, or maybe not that deep, it gives you a little bit of time because they're sort of left here and you're there, like, you know, and it gives you a little bit of time to work then and perhaps get some clean scores and make your exit then.
Yeah, particularly if you've got good footwork. So if you can, as I said, end up in that shoulder and then you can do the quarter turn and open up your back leg, or you can bring the hands into it. It's quite nice there. You know, and I mean that one, you know, there's a few of them who like that quite a bit, and Jamie definitely likes that particular one whenever it's right against left. You know, that's a nice one, you know, to be able to make that turn and be able to follow on. But even if it's right against right and you're in the armpit, worst case scenario, it's usually a break. But if you can do it well, get the score on the way in, and like make your turn and be the first one on the exit, it's great, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice place to go to the Phil Whitlock fight. There's some nice kind of bits there, especially I hope we fit it into the clip of the ridge hand, that pulling a little bit to bang in the ridge hand off the backhand was a nice one. So,
but it's important to understand the context of this. This is actually the highest level of performance that we have available to us in Ireland, which is going under the gaudy disco lights of the valley and you know, having a particularly you know, how would you say, pressured home crowd. You know, you don't want to disappoint on this floor.
This is the secret of Ireland's success.
Fighting in the dark.
Yeah, so this is a nice one. This is like a preparation that we had for, I think it was Scotland 2015, I think.
That's right. In September, the month before.
Yeah, so just a preparation event. So this is a nice little sequence that you get. Like Phil has a lot of reach over here as well. So I think it's nice to show that when you're not the tallest one in the ring, that you're still able to get them shots off, even with the blitz there and stuff. So nice little sequences. I'm hoping that we definitely included that, surely. Do we? Here's one of the ones that's really nice, that clash and go, just being able to get your leg on top and then use that momentum of your opponent as they step in to come forward with the hands. So that was a really nice one. That was a big feature of your game as well, Adam, wasn't it?
Definitely. And you know what? I'm going to give a shout out to someone here who I don't think gets enough credit for that technique. Martin Cadell is the person I think did that.
Yeah, we mentioned him in one of our clips, Adrian. Didn't we?
We have the clip against
Dylan Fitz.
Yeah,
2012.
He did it to me too as well, and he pinched the match in the last couple of. It's very. If anybody isn't like, you know, coming to the end of the match,
there we go. That's the shot.
There you go. If you're slightly off with your chamber in any way, and if it's a little pendulum swing, he'll catch you with it.
This is the one. Look at this. Oh, lovely shot.
Tickles that one. It really does.
Yeah. There's another clash and go again.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it's actually interesting, Adam, that you're able to do it with a lift and shift almost. Most people I tell to do this, leave your opponent come to you and just lift like a side rising kick almost. You're one of the few guys who can do it on the attacking side.
That's what normally that's where I started to do it, and I think that just started to blend into the game and creep in a little bit. Because I think training with the likes of Ryan and stuff, we would have been very wise to it on each other, and then therefore being quite diligent with our chambers and stuff. So having to just find little ways around it and ways to get in with the technique.
But for us as a national team for years, it's quite useful because you at -70 you were almost always, with the exception of maybe like Ludwig or the occasional other person floating in there, you'd usually been the taller guy in the ring. And so when you still have game, when it goes to you sparring someone taller or leggier or rangier, it meant that we had options, when it was Colin Adolphs, when it was, someone like Phil Whitlock there, whether it was Mateusz Mraz, whoever it happened to be, like you want to, very often the taller fighter doesn't have experience sparring taller fighters, or doesn't have, they don't have game against those taller fighters. And I think that was an interesting one for you as well, because you still had options, and you weren't only able to spar down. You could also spar people who were equally or even more leggy than you were. And I don't know if that was so much you weren't always the tallest guy in the room, or was it an element as well of like when you were fighting Wacko as well, there was, like, as you said, the likes of Zsolt Muradi, and there's a few of those nice tall Russian lads that they don't really give you an inch. So you probably had to find a way to deal with those kind of threats. And I suppose even within Ireland, like some great between the Tony Stevensons or GMK.
Des Leonard would have been a good
Leonard,
one. Yeah. So like that in training and stuff, among most of my sparring partners, I would have normally been the tallest. So sometimes when I was going up against lads who were taller than me, I used to sort of just apply the logic of, what do I hate when people do against me? Like, that was sort of the easiest thing I could do. Is like when I'm sparring Colin Carroll, or Ryan isn't that much smaller than me, but like Sam was like, what do they do that I find difficult? And then I used to sort of just apply that logic, and it worked most of the time anyway. And sort of just offsetting that distance. And hands was a big thing then when I was against the bigger lads, because my strongest weapon in my lead leg often got taken from me, because I wasn't going to be bullying them around the ring. So I was like, okay, sort of like the analogy of you box a brawler and you brawl a boxer. So like if somebody's using legs on me, I'm going to use hands. If somebody's using hands, I'm going to use legs.
Contrast.
So having the skill set there is the hard part in developing both your games. But if you've got it, then just applying that logic can be very effective.
Yeah, I mean, that principle of contrast comes up over and over again since we accidentally stumbled on it, Richie. Like, I mean, you instinctively know it, but finding a term that encompasses it was hard, and we kind of stumbled across it in the middle of a conversation on countering front leg and things like that. And it was just that there are so many times when a person is attacking like hip line, you'll go higher. If it's going to be a case of with legs, you'll probably counter hands, you counter legs. Open side, you go
circular shots.
Exactly.
Right,
contrast is often key to it. So it's the rock paper scissors of it. You counter the one with the other. But I think in terms of what that mental step that you described there, just so casually, it's a very important one that all of us miss up to a point in our development. We are really poor at putting ourselves in other people's shoes. So if I get nervous, surely other people must get nervous too. We don't think like that. We think I get nervous, no one else is nervous. It only happens to me, and that's a part of it. And likewise, as you said there, it's like, well, what do I hate as a tall fighter when people are attacking me? What causes me problems? The presence of mind to flip that around and say, well, okay, so now I'm sparring someone taller, that will cause them problems the same way. A lot of the time people just don't make that step. So it's, how do you flip? And if the way we usually get the question, of course, is how do I spar someone taller than me? Learn the lessons that you got from sparring someone smaller than you, and what was hard when you were sparring that smaller person, and apply that to yourself, and improve the parts of your game that are going to help challenge a taller fighter, I suppose, is you phrase that well.
where I sort of somebody, I can't remember who told me that before, was that in football teams they used to sometimes make the attacking players play as defenders and the defenders play as attacking players, so they get to see what they're looking out for. So if you're an attacker and you do a couple of sessions as a defender, you start to know, all right, well, I hate when they get behind me or whatever it may be for football. So same in our situation, spar the different levels and then go, right, well, what do I not like? And then just apply that to your game then.
Very good. I'm going to jump over to one we have here from, I think this was Budapest European Cup with Patrick Karlstrom. So, yeah, this is an interesting one. You weren't even going to go to this tournament.
Yeah, that's right. Patrick's a dog as well. He was in the game a long time.
Oh, he loves to fight.
Front leg push kicks off the back leg and axe kicks coming directly out of nowhere and stuff as well. But yeah, definitely. I think this clip particularly is towards the end of the fight. So this is 1 round of 3 minutes, I think, and he's trying to put the pace on here because you have the lead. I just wanted to highlight the fact that you were able to circle so well and still work on the back foot, which is very unique for a big guy, and being able to get those shots off a jumping axe kick almost on the back foot there. You know, it's a skill that not many big guys have. It's nice to see that.
Yeah, definitely. And again, what we were talking about earlier on with the groin issues in this one, like that type of technique there was fine because there was no overextension, but I could easily just pick up the axe kick, which I was lucky with. But yeah, I'm glad. I hope there's a clip in that fight of Patrick absolutely cracking me with a back leg push kick. You haven't got that in here?
Not in this particular one. No.
We decided not to show that in your highlights.
But but for me, I like, and we often say it as well, like, you know, you are working around under some pressure, and you've only actually got the 8x8 there when you include the red on the outside. So, you know, it's a smaller ring than what you'd see in most of these clips where, you know, you're sparring in a world championships, you're sparring in a European championships, and you've got an 8x8 with the safety mat around. This is you know, 6x6 with a safety around. It's you know, it's a much smaller space. You know, particularly when you're, you know, over 6 foot tall and all the rest of it. It does show how difficult movement can be, and the additional work that you have to do. And as I said, if you want to talk about, okay, it hasn't worked out well for Patrick in this case, but you know, when you're working against someone who is that much taller, or, you know, that when you're looking to create pressure, the size of the ring can be a lever that you can pull, and, you know, creating that pressure and forcing the bigger person to have to try and find space for their legs. You know, it's a big thing. You can leverage that to build warnings and to build pressure, because when we're trying to escape and find space to get the legs up, you're off balance. You're off balance. You're moving too fast. You know, you're not in balance to react to a shot or to counter a shot. And I think that's what you've done particularly well in that instance, and why Richie picked that clip out was, you know, as much as you're retreating for most of the clip, you're doing it in balance and while throwing shots.
Definitely, yeah. And even what we're talking about there about the size of the ring, like, yeah, when you're there and you haven't got much space behind you, a big foot-to-foot movement or whatever, and we're talking about the importance of warnings earlier on, you're outside the ring, like, you know, and then warnings are going to start to accumulate. So, yeah, trying to keep that in that fight, he was, for most of the match, he was pressing forward. Like, so trying to keep that in a tight sort of circle was difficult, but it definitely, as far as I remember, my warning count wasn't that high either in the fight. So trying to keep it in as tight a circle as possible helped me to keep that warning count low. As you're saying, Adrian, if I had been a little bit off with my footwork and a little bit loose, it definitely would have found myself pressed to the edge of the ring more often and racking up warnings, which wouldn't have helped.
I think what often happens in that one as well is, like, if your default is like a retreating side kick or a back kick or something like that, you're naturally giving that space because of the length that you have in your stance and everything as well. So you might have to change your go-to. You know, your defensive shot becomes different. You may have to rely on the hands more. May have to use like a stopping kick rather than a retreating kick, and, you know, it's adapting. And I think that's...
But even that pull and push that you had in that clip there as well, Adam, with the hands was really nice. The fact that you were on the back foot and you were able to push forward and then come back again on the retreat, a nice switch of momentum there. It was nice to catch them by surprise as well. And again, like we were going back to, just so clean on that hand for the judges. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I think I was going to talk about that point there, Richie, was that it's something, again, we don't really do, like changing that distance. And we spoke about it earlier on, rhythm. So as opposed to everybody's sort of mindset can be, okay, I'm winning, therefore I have to go on the back foot. But like, I've never been in a situation where you're losing and you're still getting knocked around the ring, like, and you're like, this isn't how it's supposed to go. You're supposed to go on the back foot now, and I'm supposed to chase. You follow the narrative for 20 seconds. I go at you like a bull. You dance, and you win the match. Whereas when you just say, all right, now I'm just going to keep going forward. I'm going to change that now. I'm going to press forward. It really sort of can mess up an opponent, like, because it's just not how it's supposed to go. We all drill stuff in the club where, right, 30 seconds left, you're down 2 points, and you go on your bike and you move and you move and you move, and the person tracks and tracks and tracks. So if all you have in your mind is like, I have free reign to go forward here as much as you want, it's not the case really in a live match. Like, somebody should be capitalizing on that, you know.
And I think that's actually something that I was looking at. I don't know if you've noticed this, Adam, but a lot of your fights, when you're in a nice lead towards the end, rather than just coming outside the ring, you had this tendency to throw a band-aid and almost sometimes use that to stop anybody coming forward towards you, and it would end up either falling over or something.
Definitely.
And I think is that trying to avoid exits from Wacko, or was that just like a nice go-to that you had to kind of close out the match to cause a bit of a stoppage to run more time if the referee said hecho, as opposed to just... Well, what are the thoughts there on that? Because I did notice it was a bit of a regular occurrence.
Yeah, so I definitely would have taken that from some of the Wacko guys. Like, so they were doing it from the point of view of, as you said, not getting a warning or an exit. Just throw something obscure and take the fall and get brought back into the middle. Or they changed their rules recently where you have to stay there, but it used to be where you get to come back into the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then mine used to be as well. It's like, okay, rather than maybe, let's say I've got 2 warnings there in the bank, rather than just take them, like, why not just throw something crazy? And I've in some spars, I did land some nice shots like that. And even in training, especially at the end, when somebody, if you think about it in the situation, somebody's there with 10 seconds left and their worlds or European dreams are about to get taken away from them, they're quite desperate. Like, we've all been there. I've been there. And your regard for things is you're a little bit emotional, like you're going. So you're very open to a crazy 360 or something. So if you're gonna land something for the highlight reel, that's your time, like, so why not try it and just go out, like, definitely.
For sure.
I think that's something as well that's important there, Adam, for like one of the soundest guys I know and ever met. You're an absolute, like, you're vicious in the ring and you're ruthless. I think that's that controlled aggression that you have when you go in there and that intensity. It's just that switch you have. It's very interesting because, as I said, an absolute sound bloke, but there's that absolute killer inside you as well once you step on the mats.
Yeah, you need it, don't you? Because, like, we know what it's like at the highest level. They're going to do it to you too. Like, if anybody else gets a chance, they're going to take you out. So if we're going in, we might as well be fair game.
Yeah.
So just have one question. We might even finish on this one. We're kind of running to the end of that hour, but from Randy Edwards. So excellent sparring, use of quick lead leg. It's great to see the use of head movement and hands. Please tell me if you use reverse kicks, or is that something you don't find much use for? So other than the exits there at the end.
Yeah, so is that we're talking about, like, sort of back reverse type of kicks?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, not a major part of my game, but I did utilize them at times. No particular reason as to why they weren't in. I think I much rather to step through with hands. That's just what I favored, and I had much more success with over the years. But there wasn't many in that clips, but I've thrown a couple over the years, but just preferred hands. That's the only reason for it, nothing else.
You did throw a few, like, when we were coming through the clips. It was kind of like we did a video on the band-aid a few weeks ago, and it was very similar to that. It was when your front leg gets put to your back leg, and then it opens up the reverse side. Yeah, you were inclined to throw a few of them then every now and again, which was a big feature of your game.
Yeah, so that's like what I did notice. Like, if I had my right leg forward and I wasn't as strong with using the band-aid off my left leg. So therefore, I would more than likely, especially training with good side kickers, a lot of the time, I just end up getting knocked over. But if I did have my right leg behind, that was sort of my time. It's like, all right, well, if I'm against the lefty now, I'll go with it. But then in a competitive spar, I didn't really want to find myself left versus left because I wouldn't have been great at using my left leg as my lead leg. So it's just sort of counterbalances there,
Yeah,
oh,
that's cool.
Really good. Any more questions, guys? If you have any questions, now's the time to get them in. Clip-wise, Adrian, have we gone through them all?
Very much so. I think we have another one with Camille, but just while look, we have one here from Thomas Fogarty. We might just jump into the questions so as they're popping up. So from Thomas, did you prefer when you fought more sideways and pick people off with the leg, or when you started to open up and get into the hands more?
I'd say definitely hands, because number one, I think I suppose it did depend on who I was against, but I think hands generally are a little bit more entertaining. And then secondly, it's a lot more economical. Like sitting there and just picking people off with hands, and using hands, I just found was a lot easier as opposed to pumping that leg all day. It's if you have 6 spars, 6 2-minute rounds in a day, if you're constantly driving that leg out, it is going to take a toll. It can be a lot sort of easier on the conditioning to use hands. So yeah, to answer your question, Thomas, hands for me. Yeah,
I think it comes down to those 2-hour drives down to a squad session in a freezing hall. It's like, all right, I think I'll warm up my hands first and get started.
Exactly. It takes half an hour to get warmed up to start kicking like that.
Yeah. By round 3 or 4, it's like, all right, the legs are working now. We'll start.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. But
so we hope you enjoyed it, Adam. It was nice to sit down and have a look back and get some of your highlights.
That was enjoyable.
Very good, very good.
We had the signature internet stutter there for just a second, but it's like I have to say, very much enjoyed that myself, and it's wonderful. A lot of the time you're speculating, you're wondering what the person is thinking, feeling, how a particular sequence in a fight goes to their mentality, their preparation, their go-to, and it's great just to have it from the horse's mouth, as it were. It's a nice one. Thanks, Tom.
Do you know this guy, Adam?
I actually don't know, not at all.
But, for Tom, then, is it actually obvious that Adam has a long neck just from the videos here, or is it just that myself and Richie are wearing the hoods up and don't look like we have necks at all?
Just tell Tom if he wants to arrange a spar to see if it helps. I'm more than welcome to that.
But I suppose intuitively it would make more sense that, having a neck would be a disadvantage for slipping punches. It's got to be much easier to get out of the way if you don't have a neck. If your traps just extend directly from your ears. Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just be a little bit of a Mike Tyson tank there, and, the little movements. But, it could well be a factor. But,
No, it was great. So guys, if you did enjoy this new format, make sure and let us know. Hit this video a like. There was some absolute nuggets there that Adam gave us of ways to, basically some of the secrets of his ways of getting to them world titles throughout his career. So make sure and hit this video a like. It was really, really valuable. A great way to maybe approach this in the future. So if it was a good format and you did enjoy it, let us know in the comments. And Adam, just thanks very much. Really much enjoyed it. It was cool.
Yeah. Deadly, lads. Cheers for having me on. I really enjoyed that. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Great stuff.